You might remember a movie called Rudy. It was about a young man whose greatest ambition in life was to go to Notre Dame University and play football for them. And he had many obstacles in his way to reaching that goal, but he was determined. And despite everything, he set off. He couldn't get into Notre Dame right away, so he went to the, keep meaning to look this up, the college across the lake there from St. Joseph College, I think it is, or something like that. Oh, Holy Cross, thank you. So he went there, trying to get his grades up and some other things he had to do, and he met a priest while he was there, and he would talk with him periodically. Anyway, he received one rejection letter after another over and over again, and was getting more and more discouraged. And then comes this scene where he's sitting in the chapel, Notre Dame's church there at the chapel, and the priest sees him and comes over. And they talk a little bit, and Rudy says, maybe I haven't prayed enough, or something like that. And the priest says, prayer is what we do in our time. The answer comes in God's time. We prayed in the responsorial psalm, I waited for the Lord, and he stooped towards me and heard my cry. The waiting is the hard part for us, right? And we sometimes give up praying. We pray for a while and we get discouraged and just let it go or something. But there's something important, there must be, about that time of waiting. And so I was meditating on it this week. I came across an odd verse, at least I've never noticed this before. It's in Isaiah chapter 62. Upon your walls, O Jerusalem, I have set watchmen. All the day and all the night, they shall never be silent. And I thought, that's odd. I've never noticed that before. What are watchmen? I mean, my picture of watchmen on the gate, on the wall, is that they are silent unless something's wrong, and then they raise the alarm, But these will never be silent. You who put the Lord in remembrance, take no rest and give him no rest until he establishes Jerusalem and makes it a praise on the earth. And that in remembrance, what it really means there is reminder, like you who are there to remind the Lord. And I don't know how I've missed that all this time, but it just seems so odd to me, and I've been kind of meditating on these couple of verses all week. I thought about that. I thought about in terms of myself. Teresa's constantly reminding me of things because I forget stuff. And I thought, surely God doesn't need to be reminded. And of course, we shouldn't take that literally, I guess, as we mean it for ourselves. But this idea that those who are on the walls are praying constantly, reminding they won't let the Lord forget. And we think about that through Israel's history. Remember when God calls Moses at first, he said, I have heard my people's cry, and I mean to save them, I mean to set them free from their slavery. Of course, they were in slavery quite a while. I forget now, I forgot to look it up, 400 or 500 years or something, before God hears their cry. And the history of Israel is that periodically Israel forgets the Lord, gets in trouble, and then cries out to the Lord. The Lord finally hears them and rescues them from whatever predicament they're in, and it goes on, it happens. And finally, the Lord hears and sends his son. We just celebrated all that. So what's going on there, that time between when we begin to call to the Lord and the time he answers? I don't know. I didn't get any word on that this week. But I have a feeling there's something of a mystery in our prayers to God, in our crying out to God. And we won't understand it, I don't think. If we ever understand it, it'll be when this is all over. But there's something that about constantly praying to the Lord, not giving up, reminding him, give him no rest, it says, until he establishes Jerusalem. I mean, there are a lot of things right now, we can call to the Lord and say, Lord, what's going on here, We've got unrest in our country. We've got just almost seems like a complete breakdown of civil dialogue. We've got violence in the world. All the old things are still going on. People are still being trafficked. There's still injustice. There's still tyranny in the world. Our church seems, I don't know where it is right now. A lot of stuff going on in the church. And I read an interview, a short interview with Ralph Martin. If you remember that name, we read his book in the small faith groups, The Fulfillment of All Desire. And one question and answer caught me. The question was, do you ever get discouraged? He's just written a new book on crises in the church or something. And the question was, do you ever get discouraged? And his answer caught me. He says, not at all. Now I guess I was thinking of some kind of nuanced answer, well, this or that. He says, no, not at all. God has all this in hand. What do we pray in the collect? God, of course I forgot it, who directs all things in heaven and on earth, And that's what Ralph Martin, he says, not at all. I don't get discouraged. This is all, God's in control of everything. He's got all taken care of. The part that's trouble for us is we don't see the whole picture. We don't understand the timeline. We don't really know what God is doing. But I don't think it is for us to know. It's for us to be faithful. It's for us to pray and remind God. It's for us to be patient and wait on God. And in a funny sort of way, we have a little encouragement today with this story about Samuel. If you remember, Samuel's mother is Hannah and his father Elkanah. And every year they'd come up to Jerusalem for the festivals, And Hannah was childless and was greatly disturbed by that, as all mothers would be back then. And she's praying in the temple, and she's so intent on her prayer, and her lips are moving, And Eli, whom we hear today, the high priest, basically comes to her and says, hey, it's too early to be drunk. You shouldn't be drunk here anyway. Get out of here, And she says, no, I'm not drunk. I'm praying. I really want a child. And Eli says, go. And home, the Lord will hear you. Sure enough, she becomes pregnant, and she names her child Samuel, which is from the Aramaic Shema Elohim. God remembered, or God heard, rather, I'm sorry. God hears, God heard. And we pray in the psalm, I waited for the Lord. He stooped toward me, he heard my cry. This is not the time to be discouraged, although it's tempting. It's not really the time to be angry. It's not really the time to talk about our leaders. It's not the time. This is the time for prayer. This is the time for fasting. It's just the time we're in. This is the time to give God no rest, to pester him and remind him until he frees us from the things from which we need to be freed. And so we have a lot of examples. Let's be like them. Let's be like Ralph Martin in his confidence that God is in control. Let's be like Hannah in her patience, her trust in God to hear her prayer, her never-ending prayer. And if we do that, one day God will take heed and will fix what needs to be fixed and bring us along. He'll heal what needs to be healed. It may be in our time, it may not be. And in a way, I don't think it matters. What matters is that we do what we're supposed to do and trust God to do what God is going to do.